Test of your relationships. Who are you in relationship with? Now, I would say, if you look at what Scripture says, here's what Scripture says very clearly. If you are living differently than other people, there will be a tension till the day that you die in relationship with people who are not living like you. That makes sense? Right? Like living the way that God calls you to live and people going the other direction, somehow we think that we can just make that work in a relationship. You can't make that work. There will always be tension. You know why it says don't become unevenly yoked? Listen to me, young people, before you get married. I'm gonna say this here in just a second. As you're dating, you know why it tells you to make sure that, girls, to make sure that your future husband loves the Lord more, as if not as equal as you do? Because you know why? Because when you get married, and you're living in a relationship and you want no tension inside of your marriage, but your husband does not love the Lord as much as you do, you will have constant tension. Because you're gonna wanna live different. Come on, nobody's ever experienced this, right? Like you're gonna wanna live different and they're gonna wanna live this way, and there's this constant, will you just come to church with me? Will you just do devotions with me? Will you just pray with me? Will you bring our kids? Will you lead our children? Will you do? Right? Wrong? Like there's gonna be that tension. That's why relationships, who you surround yourself with, is so important. In fact, listen to what it says in Matthew 10, right? You don't have to go to this, but you should go back to it later. Here's what he says in Matthew 10, talking about relationships. Don't suppose, this is what Jesus says, don't suppose that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come, this is what he's talking about relationally, to turn a man against his father, a daughter against his mother, a daughter-in-law against his mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Listen, he's saying this is the way relationships go, right? He's not saying I'm gonna automatically turn you against your father and mother, but if your father and mother don't love Jesus and you do, there will be tension. And the idea is not to make peace. Does that make sense? The idea is not to give in or change your lifestyle so they're happy. The idea is what we've just said in Scripture, live differently with the hopes that they see Jesus. Right? That's the whole idea in Scripture. Wives, there's hope, right? If your husband isn't where he needs to be, Scripture says, Peter says, live like you love Jesus, and your husband might come to Christ because of your example. Isn't that cool? Right? Like there's an example that can be given, but relationally, think about friendships for a second. A lot of times friendships in the world today are very transactional. Anybody ever had friends like that before? Like they're friends with you as long as you can get what they want or give them what they want. A couple of you have had some friends like that. Do you remember in the story, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they helped the people not die, and then they're getting ratted out the next day. Right? They're getting ratted out the next day. Like that's this idea of like relationship 101. Like you need to surround yourself with people that aren't going to be just there whenever it comes to, the idea of getting what they want. Here's the other thing. Who should you be friends with? Okay? When I say friends, I'm not saying you can be friends or acquaintance with a lot of different people, but who should you be friends with? Somebody that will challenge you to be the best version that God has made you to be. You see, you know why we don't ever pass this test? You know what the biggest problem is? Nobody wants to hear the hard truth. You know why it doesn't work inside of marriage sometimes, relationships? Because you don't want to hold each other accountable for what God's called you to be. We just give up. You know why it doesn't work in relationships sometimes? Because we sit in a mentoring relationship and you know what? You need to live differently. You know what? The way you're living is absolute garbage. Stop being a baby, pull up your bootstraps, stop whining about what you think is wrong with you, get in the game. You're like, you shouldn't talk to me that way, it's so mean, and come on, this is just being love, and stop being so mean on these things. You need somebody. Anybody? You need somebody. You need somebody that can look across the room and say, the way that you're living today and the choices that you're making today aren't right. And you better be able to hear it. If you want to pass the test and you want to live different, then you better surround yourself with somebody who can challenge you. But the problem in our world and our culture today is we're running away from those tests. We're just running away from those people. Find those people in your life.